it's definitely less professional live stream this time because I accidentally started the live stream the wrong way round. And once you start a live stream in one orientation, that's it. That's it. You're screwed. You can't rotate it back round and improve it, which is terrible. So I'm trying to delete it. I'm trying to get rid of it, but sometimes it doesn't delete. Live streaming is a nightmare sometimes. I'm just going to see if I can delete it. That was a disaster. So we'll just try again, and we will continue. Hopefully that was to work. Yeah, that's now worked. I'm just going to go on now and bring up the other account that I have, which is normally how I keep track of all the comments and things. I do it on a separate device because I learned this the way me and Seabrook. If you try to do a live stream just on a phone and try to keep up the comments, it's absolutely impossible. You can't do it. You have to bring it up in a different way, which is what I'm going to do. So I will be with you in just one moment. It's always the way that it goes. Right, okay, so there. Put that onto the mute. Okay, right, I'll just bring the comment section up here. Right, Mr. Waters from Scottish Car Enthusiast and Trains TVS, who says good evening. Good evening to you, sir. Alex Jebson says good evening. Good evening to you, sir. The chat has been popped out. So we'll be talking about today, rather than the Toyota Space Cruiser that I found in Southampton on the day that I picked the Volvo up. As you can see, I'm wearing my maroon jumper this evening because that's sort of closest thing I have to the colour of the Volvo. I saw a Toyota Space Cruiser, funnily enough, in this particular colour. But yes, we're going to talk about the P80 platform Volvos. That is the 850, the C70, the S70, and the P1 V70. They were made from 1992, in some markets late 91, I think, until 2005. The second platform that came along after that, which is sort of based on the first one, was called the P2 platform, and that has a load of other cars on it. The Mark 1 S60, the Mark 2 S70, the XC90 is kind of based on that. The S80 is based on that as well. The other stuff that sort of came along, the kind of the Ford based stuff, talking about the Mark 2 C70, the Mark 2 V40, the V50, those were based on a Ford platform that's shared with the Focus, as far as I remember. Mr. Harwood from Rover Joe says good evening. Good evening to you, sir. Paulie Galtieri says good evening. Good evening to you, sir. Alex Jebson says, how's the C70 holding up? Well, you might have actually seen the video that Mr. Hunter from Jeff Buys Cars put up, which was a couple of days ago. He's like me. He's very, very fast at editing and getting videos up. I'm fast getting videos up. The reason the car hasn't actually appeared on No Budget Reviews is because I didn't want to put the car up the day that I picked it up. I wanted to actually reveal it gradually because there'd been a process behind actually acquiring that car, but it had taken several months. And the Very Vague Vlogs actually catalogued it quite well the past few weeks I've been making them. So I left it. I sent it out to some people who were channel members. Channel members have seen it for a long time, and also people who I know through the C70 First Generation Facebook group, who are very helpful. Actually, there's some nice cars on there. They've all seen that. It's had like 150 views despite actually not going live, which must be a record for me. But it will finally go live on Tuesday. So Mr. Hunter's filmed it. Mr. Richardson from Furious Driving has filmed it. He had a good time. Mr. Coleman, rubbish mechanic, he did the cam belt change for me on it and service. He wouldn't let Mr. Richardson go near it without that. So yeah, he has driven it. Mr. Hunter's driven it. Alex from Alex's Assets has driven it, and it's done over 1,000 miles since I picked it up on the 2nd of November. So it's done quite well. We think there might be a very slight power steering fluid leak on it. It's not nearly as bad as what happened in the video that some of you might have seen on the Jeff Buy Cars channel. It might not be bad. Really, it's worse than it probably looks on there. But yeah, we'll probably do maybe at some point next month a sort of 1,000-mile report on it or something. I have another trip to do to meet up with someone else who's got a T5 C70, and then we'll see about what it's like with a manual one. He's got one with a manual gearbox. Yeah, it's a manual gearbox one he's got, which is interesting. It's not a GT model either. The GT model was a standard with the firmer suspension on the C70 T5s. The normal one has softer suspension. I suspect actually I might prefer the standard one. The thing is that C70 T5s are so unbelievably rare. There's something like 29 of them left at C70 T5 coupes. They only made them from 1996 to 2002. The cabriolets are far more common, and of course the other engines, 2.4 turbo, 2.4 non-turbo, which is also called a 2.5. The 2-litre turbo, they're much more common than a T5. The T5s were the first engine available, but they're not particularly common. So to have someone who says you can have a go in my manual one is really good. He's also got a very nice V70 T5, so we'll have a go in that too. It's also a manual. DBT says, good evening all. Good evening to you, sir. Chambers 101 says, what happened a few minutes ago? What happened a few minutes ago is that the live stream didn't start properly. I stupidly started it the wrong way around in the wrong orientation. And I don't think you want to see live streams, particularly that I do on the wrong orientation. That would be very bad. So I cancelled it, and there we go. Mr. Harwood says, "Oh, sir, I have coronavirus. I'm so sorry, sir. That is not fun. I really hope you do get better very soon. My dissertation is due on 15th of December. I hope you can do it on time, sir. I do hope so. I really hope that you haven't got the Delta variant of the coronavirus that I had last year. That was not fun. I hope that you do recover very soon, sir, and to get your dissertation on time." Peugeot Dude and Son says, hello all. Hello to you, sir. James Warner says hello to the chat. Hello, sir, again. Mr. Adam Tom says good evening. Good evening to you, sir. Mr. Wallace from Scottish Car Enthusiast and Trades TV says power steering leaks are common on Volvos. My S60 had a power steering leak. Yes, they are very common on the P80 platform Volvos and also on the P2 platform, which is related to the P80 platform as well. The 850 that I drove this week, which belongs to Mr. Hunter from Jeff Buys Cars, that had a terrible power steering fluid leak. Unfortunately, on those, the power steering racks, you cannot get a new rack for them at all. You simply can't get one. You can get them refurbished, take them off the car and refurbish them, but that often costs a lot of money. Mr. Coleman has told me it's a 10-hour job to actually replace a steering rack on a P80 platform Volvo. And obviously, given that not all of them are worth a lot of money, that probably has been responsible over the years for a lot of these cars being scrapped. Not with rust so much. I mean, 850s do have problems with rusty wings sometimes, but you can get rust at the rear of the chassis on a P80 platform Volvo. But rust isn't normally what kills them. It tends to be things like cam belts being skipped, and the fact that if the turbo goes on a T5, it's really expensive to replace, or the power steering rack or something like that. So one major big component failure because of the low values. But yeah, they do leak power steering fluid, and that's what we think both of them were leaking during that video on his channel. If you want to see it, it's called Fear and Loathing in Las Malvern, if you want to see it. And we had an absolutely hilarious time on Thursday making that video. It was very, very good fun. Richard House says, good evening, sir. Alex Jebson says the leak could be a suction hose gone bad, a bottle split in the middle between it joins together. I've had to replace both of mine. I suppose when I take it up to this chap I know from the um, C70 first generation Facebook group, that we'll have a look at that and see if it is. But I can't find actually a difference in the level. I'm basically did contact with Mr. Coleman. I'm just going to check the levels when I drive the car. Every time I'll just check the oil. I will check the power steering fluid every time I drive it. I think it's just what we're going to have to do. I've got some power steering fluid. Mr. Hunter very kindly gave me some, and I'll just keep an eye on the level. It's an old car. It's almost 25 years old. Just keep an eye on the levels. That's probably not a bad idea. Mr. Planet Man says, "Good evening, all. Good evening to you, sir. It is 2:38 in the afternoon in Ontario. Never been to Canada myself." Paulie Gattiri says, "I'm wondering if a 2.4 turbo C70 would take the high pressure turbocharger." I don't know. Mr. Coleman would be able to tell you that, I think. He is an expert on P80 platform Volvos. Mr. Hunter is as well, but not to the same extent Mr. Coleman is. Mr. Coleman is a fount of knowledge about many, many types of car, but the P80 platform Volvos and generally 1990s Volvos, he would just say, "I don't have a bad word to say about them," is what Mr. Coleman would say. It's the sort of thing he says. And I understand about that entirely. Although I don't like the rear visibility in the C70 or the lack of it. It's appalling. The steering lock is awful. The turning circle is rubbish. It's absolutely rubbish. It's not on 850s. It's not on S70s or V70s. It is on the S60s. But just for C70 particularly, the steering lock and the turning circle is appalling. Which is a bit of a pain sometimes. Alex Jepson says, "I've got the 2-litre non-GT model with the manual gearbox. It's fantastic." Yeah, Mr. Hunter's got one of those as well, actually. His is a convertible. Nowhere near the power of a T5, but it's usable. I'd really like to have a go in a 2-litre manual C70. Hopefully Mr. Hunter's one will come back at some point. It's gone up north, I think. Yeah, I think hopefully it's gone up north, so hopefully it'll come back at some point. Might well go in that. We had a good time last time, so hopefully some of you let me know in the comments section if you would like to see more videos with Mr. Hunter. We'll see if we can make that happen. Boss Lodge says, "Good ear." I know it's good evening. DBT said, "Did you try any of Mr. Hunter's T5 stew?" No, I did not. So I had to go back to Hampshire whilst it was still daylight, and the weather was really appalling, even though it was daylight. So I'm pleased I didn't go back in the dark. So unfortunately, he and his lady wife and I think their children very much enjoyed eating Freddy the pheasant. Alan Smith says, "Good evening." Good evening to you, sir. Peugeot Dude and Son says, "Hello, Alan." Alan Smith says, "Mr. Persian Man, hello." Alex Jebson says, "Steering lock is worse than the PT platform cars." I've driven an S60 and that is very bad. That is very, very bad. The V70, I tried the P2 V70, which I did no budget reviews. That was all right. It was better than the S60. The C70 though is also it's terrible. It's about as bad as the S60. It's really bad. Pedroson says, "Somewhat annoyed my 405 forbidden fuel has died, sir." So we are going to have to ask you to refrain from mentioning the forbidden fuel, sir, because we don't talk about diesels on this channel. I'm afraid, sir. Mr. Waters from Scottish Car Enthusiasm Training TV said, "Did you enjoy any pheasant?" Yeah, no, I didn't. No, I had to go home, unfortunately, before that was cooked, which is a shame. Josh O'Neill says, "Good evening." Good evening to you as well, sir. Stevie Boy NI says, "How's the Volvo going?" We've just been talking about that, actually. I think because I've done about 1,000 miles since I picked it up on 2nd of November, the No Budget Review episode will be going live on Tuesday. So you'll see that. But that was the first day I picked it up. Yeah, I'll probably do one at some point this next month. We'll do a little report and see how it goes. That could be interesting. Polygatiri says, was there a reason why the T5s came with automatic transmissions with default choice? That's not actually true, sir. The research that's been done is that there are more manual C70 T5 coupes, but they're actually more manuals than autos. There's 29 C70 T5s in total, and the autos are actually the autos are actually less common now. I don't know if it was at the time. It's very difficult to find that sort of thing out, but certainly these days the autos are less common. That's why the one I have, it's the only C70 T5 automatic coupe in that colour. There are two manuals, but that's the only one that's a Cassis Pearl metallic, and it's an auto. So yeah, they didn't come with. I don't know why. There were quite a few autos, but the majority of them are manual. It's not a massive amount more, but it is a little bit more. DBT says, I enjoy the collaboration did with Jeff Bice Cars. The common enemy of the P80 PT platform cars is multi-story car park. Yeah, I've been in a multi-story car park with the C70. I didn't enjoy it very much. DBT says, what's the fuel consumption like on the C70? It's not brilliant. I don't think it's brilliant on any of them, to be honest. The manuals might be a bit better. I get about 30 miles per gallon. In the summer, I could get a little bit more. I drive in eco mode. Apparently, for the T5s, I'm not doing too badly. Apparently, that's quite good for the one I have. Its official figure says like 25 or something, so that's not too bad. It's not great. You do actually have to use, and Volvo recommended this back in the day, on any T5 Volvo, you have to use 97 octane fuel minimum. So that means none of the normal fuel at all. You can use E10 if it's like an emergency or something. You can put that in. It's not a problem. Any Volvo, I think after it's either 74 or 76, can use E10. It's not to do with the actual ethanol rating. It's the octane rating in the fuel. So I tend to use a Tesco Momentum 99. Sometimes I've used Morrison 97. I've used Shell. I've used, what's the other one I've used? Sainsbury's, and it doesn't really matter particularly, but you just have to make sure that you do, otherwise it can damage the turbo, and the turbos are very expensive, so that's why I do that. Not everybody has a T5 runs it always on super. Some people just run it on normal E10, 95 octane fuel, but that's what I've been recommended to do, and that's what I'm doing. Russell Hunter says, have you driven a 740? Yes, I have. I drove the one that Mr. Richardson has on Furious Driving. I drove that in 2020. It's on no budget reviews. I don't think you could get a 740 these days for under £1,000. I'm not sure you actually can anymore. He paid like £195 for his or something ridiculous. It wasn't great, but did have an MOT. So that was amazing. Jack says the automatic was the option, manual was standard. Yeah, so manual was standard on them. Actually, if you look at the Saint film from '97, I don't recommend you watch it really. There's a clip on YouTube of the scene with the C70 T5 that's in it in garnet red, and you see it's a manual, which is quite nice. It's nice to know that actually they're using proper cars in there. The rest of the Saint film is terrible. It's like the 1998 Avengers film. We just don't talk about those. They're not great. Chambers 101. Did you enjoy Alex Assett's lightweight, and was it forbidden fuel example? Sir, I'm not answering either of those questions. You'll have to wait and see. Adam Tom says, I really like the 440 and 460. They don't get a lot of love. Have I ever driven one? No, I'm trying to get hold of one. The 440s and 460s are now far rarer than the 480s. The 480s are far more common. There are quite a few hundred 480s still left. 440, 460, there's hardly any left. And they command far higher prices as well than 480s. Just can't get hold of them. Paulie says, referring to A50 T5s. Yeah, the A50 T5's got quite a good turning circle on it, actually. That's fine. Mr. Harwood from Reverjo says, for some reason, my 25's fuel economy is terrible. I think I have a leak on downpipe. What are you talking about as being terrible, Mr. Harwood? What is terrible to you? Because terrible to you might be fantastic when you compare it with something like a C70 T5. Alligator Software says, good evening, sir. Oh, my S60 T5 is the best car I've ever owned. That's very good, sir, because I am very fond of cars on the P80 and P2 platforms. Not a fond of one of the turning circles on certain ones. Not all of them are terrible turning circles, but some reason S60, C70 seem to be the worst, in my opinion. I don't know why. The C70, the visibility at the back is awful. Everyone who's driven it says it's terrible. The only person who doesn't know is Mr. Coleman. Oh, Mr. Harwood says, I did 40 miles and used a quarter of a tank. So if you did a full tank, 160 miles, that's terrible, sir. You should be getting like more than 300 or something. I should think on a 25. I should think so. DBT says P2 V70 is a bad turning circle. It wasn't as bad the one, because I have driven a P2 V70 on no budget reviews, and it really wasn't as bad as my C70. It wasn't as bad as that. The S60 was. The S60 is worse. I can't really tell which of those two is worse, but at least with the S60 you've got half a chance of seeing out the back. The C70 you really haven't, unless you fit parking sensors. But they were an option on the C70, but they were a very uncommon option for some reason. I'm going to have to get some fitted, but I'm not going to do it on the bumper. I'm going to get one of those kits that goes around the number plate frame, which I think will be better, really. Oh, Captain Reed. Oh, good evening, Captain Reed. Evening, sir. Nice to see you on the live stream. Mr. Hunter from Jeff Bice Cars. Good evening, sir. Good evening to you, sir. Yes, Mr. Hunter and I had an exciting time on Thursday. Some Lot 76 Cars says, there's 440 like my mother's had shocking build quality. We had one new in 1991. And my father part exchanged it for an E36 within a year. Wow. Gosh, that's a bit of a shame, sir, isn't it? Ross Otter said, I think about the fuel economy of Mr. Harwood's 25 to Pauling. Yeah, it doesn't look very good. Mr. Harwood says, I've got the MOT on the 2nd of December. Gosh, that's next week, isn't it? So I have to see what it fails on. I'm sorry that you don't have any sort of motivation to sort it out, so I'm sorry about that. Russell Hunter says, I had an old shape Primera at a turning circle of a super tank. Is that the P10? I didn't notice a P10 having a bad turning circle. I've driven a few of those, and I don't seem to be bad. Mr. Hunter from Jeff Buys Cars is only half here because it's the children's bedtime and I have a nagging lady wife. That's all right, sir. You can be half here. That's absolutely not a problem. Mr. Coleman is here. Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone, he says. Mr. Watson, Scottish Car Enthusiast and Trains TV, is relating to Mr. Hunter's issues with his lady wife nagging him. We won't talk about that, so that's probably a bit off topic for tonight. Sunlight 76 Car says, what is your wildlife? I'm running a bit scared. Yeah, I suppose it is. I'm afraid Freddie, he ended up in the cooking pot, so he's not around anymore to comment on that. Paulie Gatto says, looking high and low for a GT T5 automatic C70 convertible wood trim and a full bay 72 electric seats. I don't think people who are on here who are P80 Volvo expert, I don't think that's going to be a very common sort of combination to actually find if you're looking for a C70, unfortunately. Beige leather interior is the easiest thing to find, actually, and being a convertible. Richard House says, good evening to Mr. Coleman. Ross Randers says, 1998 Model S Reg. It's a P11 Primera, so I think one. I have driven one of those, and the tire circle seemed okay to me. I don't know. Mr. Harwood says, I have a feeling it will fail. This is from over 25. I know it's going to blow on the exhaust. We'll have to see how it goes. It smells really badly of burning rubber when it's up to temperature. Is that to do with the fuel lines or something? I don't know. Twisty Vegetables, I'm censoring the username here, says, do I like Renaults? It depends, really. I've driven some quite good ones on the channel. I quite like the Megane Saloon or Megane Classic that Mr. Bill from Fuel Power has. Unfortunately, that car is going to take a lot of work to put back on the road, but he's intending to do it. It's off the road at the moment. Um, Alex Jebson says they're out of there, but not that common. That's the C70 T5 automatic convertible with wood trim and a beige leather interior and electric seats. Yes, but not that common. Twisty Vegetable says I built a Renault out of blue tag. That must have taken a while, sir. Mr. Coleman says you can tell of my Volvo Discovery if you like. So Mr. Coleman used to own I think it was either an 87 or 88 Volvo Volvo 760 GLE estate with the PRV engine. I think it's a 2.8 PRV in that one. He thoroughly rebuilt the engine. Rest of the car wasn't too bad. Dark blue with a beige leather interior. He bought it in 2013, and I think he must have sold it about 5 years ago. It took a while to get back onto the road because the engine needed a full rebuild, but it was done. Cylinder head and everything was done. That I think cost a lot of money. I think eventually he sold it for a proper bit of money, but it's passed through several owners since, and he happened upon it in East Anglia just over this weekend. He didn't know it was going to be there, but it was outside, I think, someone's house. It happened to be in the same village. And the car has been stripped for its engine. The engine's gone. We think it's gone into a DeLorean because, I mean, getting any PRV is really hard. Like, it's actually cheaper to buy a car with a good PRV engine than it is to buy a good PRV engine. It's actually easier. So the car's just sitting there forlornly, no engine, full of junk, interior's all ripped. Bodywork's still not rusty because they don't tend to rust very much. The car when he got it was actually the car when he got it was actually pristine. The first owner hadn't even ever used the rear seats, so the seat belts still had plastic clips on them. So he hadn't actually ever used them. So the car was like show winner condition and mechanically 100%. So Mr. Coleman sold it for a good amount of money. But even if you want to buy just a PRV engine for anything like a DeLorean or I don't know an Alpine A310, I think they use those too, or an A610 or GTA things. It's often cheaper to buy a car with one of those, and unfortunately the car is probably only worth 200 or 300 quid in its current state. The most valuable thing in the car is the back axle, because if you want to put a T5 engine into a 240, you need a good strong back axle for it, like the one which is in which is then about 760. But unfortunately, it's not what it was, and it's just a really bit sad. So if anyone's had that situation before, you come across a car you used to own and it's in really bad condition, and someone else owns it, then please do let us know. Right, Paulie Galtieri says, have you heard Jeremy Clarkson has proposed a seatbelt tax on new cars? What how would that help, sir? I don't quite understand. Mr. Harwood says, I don't really know what the problem with his Row 25 is. It runs hot too. It might need a new coolant temperature sensor and a thermostat, because it's not the same sort of bother to fit one of those, I don't think, as it is into a KV6 at the K series. But yeah, thermostat is a common failure on them, I think. Simon from Not 26 Cars says, I keep looking at a Renault Laguna Coupe, which I think are all very nice, but not many petrols. Have you tested one? I knew somebody who had one briefly, had the wrong engine on it, because of course we don't talk about diesels on this channel. We don't talk about those. So you had the wrong engine in it. So I didn't take it off my offer because of course I can't drive it. So there we go. But yeah, nice V6 Renault Laguna Coupe. Absolutely, I'd like to try one of those. Mr. Waters from Scottish Car Enthusiast and Trains TV says, I got away with a minor leak at the flexi of my C4 Cactus Company's back. Is your flexi pipe leaking on a 2016 car, sir? That's interesting. Steve Contin says, evening, does a tidy 2005 Toyota Celica 1.8 with full service history, the same engine as in the last generation MR2, 125,000 miles for £2,900 sound good? I have no idea, sir. It's going to depend entirely on what that condition that car is actually in. Because even if you've got a full service history with a car, it's no guarantee that car's actually any good. It's very strange the way that works, but I'm afraid it's just the case. Um, yeah, I've actually come across many cars with full service history that are knackered when I look at for clients. I think Mr. Coleman will have things to say about that as well. Mr. Harwood says tomorrow I'm going to have a look at bleeding the system, presumably the cooling system, see if it's got an airlock. That's his 25. Mr. Alan Tom says the Lagunas are very nice. My friend had a Savannah at 21 Estate. They were everywhere, but seem to have disappeared. Yes, that's right. I had some friends when I was younger, which is my mother as well, who had a Savannah, red one. I think it was the 2 litre because Renault 21 is the only car I know. There might be others out there, but it's the only one I know that the engine was mounted transversely for the 1.7s, I think, and some others, and 1.4s, and then it was mounted longitudinally for the 2 litres. I'm a 2.2. I'm pretty sure that's the case, and that's the only car that's ever happened. It's a very, very, very strange situation with the 21s. I would like to have a go in one of those, but they're so unbelievably rare. I don't even know if a Savannah or the 21 Saloon would be more common, to be honest. So, Mr. Watson, Scottish Car Enthusiast and Trains TV says, oh, Jeremy Hunt over Chancellor. The Chancellor's idea is a seatbelt tax. I don't really understand. I don't understand. Well, it's weird. Most cars do have 5 seats, don't they, that you normally have? Russell Hunter says, asked a very interesting thing here. Would you say the DeLorean would be forgotten today if not for Back to the Future? Possibly. The scandal that John DeLorean was kind of implicated with was quite big news. And obviously in Northern Ireland, just for the fact that car was, built there and even maybe probably deployment and then went away so quickly was big news. I don't really know. It probably wouldn't have been as big an impact on popular culture without that film, but yeah, let's see. Rare VHS Upload says, any updates on the 45 V6? No, there are no updates on the 45 V6. We have fitted a new crack precision sensor, that doesn't seem to work at the moment. The 2 people who work on it for me most of the time, which is Mr. Coleman and Mr. Partridge. One of them's not available for 3 weeks, the other one not available for over 4 weeks. So we can't actually really do anything about it. I don't know really what's wrong with it. We're just going to have to leave it. The Volvo's working. The Mercedes is working. The SsangYong's fine. My lady wife takes that to work all the time. So we've still got 3 working cars out of 4. So that's fine, really. Mr. Colburn says, it'd be a good idea to flush out the radiator on the 25. Quite common to come up with scales and debris. Ask Mr. Richardson on his 200 VI. His exploded. It did indeed. It was disgusting. It wasn't... I did drive that car actually, and the Tourer that he has last week whilst he was driving the C70, and there are some videos of those coming up next week. Mr. Waters from Scottish Car Enthusiast and Trains TV says it is leaking and the price was credited by a dealer to replace it was declined. Oh, great! That's nice. That's nice that the dealer is trying to make you buy a new car, which is what we always do. Paulie Galtieri says, Mr. Colburn, can you fit the high pressure turbo on a C70 2.4? Mr. Colburn says, yes, you can. Excellent. Steve Quentin says, I know to listen for the Celica engine rattle on cold starts. That might be, I don't actually know. Mr. Colburn might know more about that 1.8 engine in the Celica and the MR2 than I do. Maybe he's got some sort of tips on those. I'm not too familiar with that engine, to be honest. The MR2 I drove back in March on Social Secondhand Classics, that was a one-owner car. She'd had it for 22 years, and it was absolutely perfect. I felt bad about driving that in case I did anything to it, to be honest. Persia Dean Son says, have I ever done a Volvo lorry review? I've never done any lorry review. I don't actually have any qualifications to drive lorries, I'm afraid. Sorry about that. Brute CA says, could I ask what car you go to your first car? That is a question probably as long as a piece of string. It depends what you want. I mean, what sort of budget you have, what sort of kind of insurance, you can afford and where you are. It's there's not really an answer to that question. Unfortunately, there's not really one I can give you. Um, Ooh, Hooked on Courtiers and Classic. That's a new channel name, Simone. Good evening. Sorry, I'm like, don't worry, Simone. It doesn't matter if you're late. It doesn't matter. Brute CA says, what car would you recommend as the first car was cheap? I think we just answered that question. There's not really an answer. The thing is, I can source a car professionally for you if you want. You can get in touch with my website or something like that, or there's even actually on my YouTube about page. There's an email address there that you can contact me on if you want me to do a job for you. But it's an impossible question, something like that. Unfortunately, there are too many factors involved to be able to actually answer that. Twisty Vegetables says, Brutesy a Mercedes Sprinter. As a Mercedes Sprinter, sir, it's a brilliant first car, especially for long wheelbase models. Yeah, I don't know. Is it cheaper to get van insurance than car insurance? Charles one says military Volvos are awesome. I've seen one. Actually, saw one at a show earlier this year. I saw a military Volvo lorry. It looked fantastic. Mr. Coleman, of course, is somebody who's an expert on lorries in general, and so he's really the person to ask about those sort of things rather than me. Yeah, he has, I think, a 2008 Volvo lorry on his fleet, and that's on some ridiculous mileage, and it's still going strong. It's been very reliable, actually. That it's quite an old lorry for a sort of current one. Russell Hunter says, I drove a lorry once with view to gain HGV license, the most terrifying hour of my life. I think if I were to try, it would also be the most terrifying of my life. That's true too. Alex Jepson says, I'll be honest, the C70 I have, the coupe, is the first car, and it cost me £1,200. Yes, well, mine cost me just a little bit more than that because I had auction fees. Yeah. But yeah, the actual hammer price was £1,200 too. If you just have never driven a car before, you would just think the rear visibility and the rubbish steering lock are normal. That's what you think. It's only when you've driven like tons of other cars like I have, and I drive loads of different cars every week, that you kind of realise what is, abnormal, shall we say. Twisted Vegetable says, I'm going to build a Citroen on a blue tack. You're going to replace Mr. Seabrook's 2CV, are you? Is that what you're going to do? Paulie Galtieri says, Mr. Hunt of Jeff buys cars has been great with Volvo content. Yeah, he and I actually had a discussion when we were together on Thursday about the fact that Volvos are very much in our blood because we both grew up in families, just in our teenage years, where Volvos were there. That's pretty much it, really. So the C70 is my first Volvo. I've kind of always wanted one though. Always wanted the Volvo, and now I have one, and I love it. So there we go. So yeah, the video we did, Fear and Loathing in Last Malvern, together on the Jeff Buys Cars channel was very, very funny. For some reason, we seem to work really well together. We don't know each other particularly well, but we just kind of are able to have these stupid times together. I think it's because we're a little bit different, but we also kind of understand, what makes things funny subconsciously. I did a degree in French and German, and part of it was doing a literature module on 17th century tragic drama, which sounds really, really boring, but what it actually is looking at the greats of French literature, things like Racine and Corneille. But what I was more into really was comedy, things like Molière. And Molière is basically a masterclass in how to do comedy. And if you watch Fawlty Towers, you find that a lot of the situations in Fawlty Towers are straight out of Molière. And John Cleese, being an intelligent chap, and his former lady like Connie Booth, they would have known how those played and how to sort of put things together. But the problem is, if you kind of sort of take comedy apart, then you realise it's not funny anymore. If you try to find out why something's funny and you deconstruct why something's funny, it's not funny anymore. But if you just kind of leave it and let it grow organically, which is what we did, we didn't plan or rehearse anything in the video, it just kind of happened. We knew we were going to talk about the P80 Volvos and things like that. That was why we were there. But the things that happened there, talking about university education and grass-fed beef and things like that, and we're hitting Freddy the Pheasant. It just kind of happened, and then the um, the stretch of the Adman's path, which is one of my favourite phrases, and the Ford Corsair V4. It just happened. So we'll try again. We'll have a go at that. Right, we've got some more comments on here while I've been talking about 17th century tragic drama. Alan Smith says he's just in the process of buying an E-Reg 240 project. Yes, my mother's 240 was a G. It was an 89, but a 1990 model year. My mother had it from January 1990 until November 2001. She had it years and years and years. Tony Circle on that is fantastic. Unfortunately, that car got written off in about 2005. One of my mother's colleagues bought it off her accident in Wales when it hit a BT van, which is a bit of a shame, but never mind. Mr. Waters asked Alex Jepson, are you a member of Volvo Owners Scotland? Interesting. I'm also a member of the Volvo Owners Club, and the magazine is really good. I've been enjoying it. Alligator Software says, when do you think the tipping point will come when drone technology overtakes the mumbled car as a means of transport to the masses? Oh my gosh, I don't know. I think we're asking the wrong sort of questions on here. I'm just going to have to ask people in the comments section to write their responses to that. I don't really know. Mr. Coleman, he's talking about his Volvo truck, Volvo FH 2008 18-speed manual. Had it from new, just over 1 million miles, Velo maintenance, original water pump. Alex Jepson says, I'll be honest, you get used to the terrible turning circle in the C70 the more you drive it. You do. You just kind of plan to kind of not go into spaces that are really tight and try to avoid really tight car parks and things like that. You just kind of try to avoid it. That's what I've been doing anyway. Rare VHS Upload says, I agree that Mr. Hunter from Jeff Buys Cars made a good team. Thank you, sir. That's very kind. We are planning on doing some more stuff if we can. Twisty Vegetable says, I'm building a 1-to-1 scale Zara Picasso, one that looks like an egg completely out of blue tack. I've driven a Zara Picasso, sir, but I'm afraid I can't talk about that. I had a moment of madness and thought I was the NC Rook. That's why I went to drive it. Steve Cottons, I used to clean buses and luxury coasters. Moving them to clean and parking up in a dark yard was scary. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that myself. Alligator Software says, I gave up my seat to an elderly person. That's how I lost my job as a bus driver. Oh, okay. Yeah, I get that. Twisty Vegetable says, we can't talk about buses on the channel. We sort of can, unless you want to talk about electric buses, but I don't find they're particularly interesting. I've been on some of those, but I don't think there's really much to sort of say about those. Alice says 2 spare engines, Cummins Forbidden Fuel, and 5.7 small block. Is that Forbidden Fuel as well? Twisty Vegetable says Alan can't talk about diesel on this channel. That is correct. That is correct. We can't actually can't do that. 5.7 small block. If I even go in a 240. Paulie Gaturi says, I truly missed my D-Reg automatic B200E, that's an engine code, Volvo 240 GLE estate with a black leather interior. Sir, we would like a 240 GLE, sir, with leather interior, but we prefer a beige leather interior, sir. We prefer that. Russell says, who are we to be to win the World Cup? I haven't been following. I don't really know. I'm sorry. I don't really follow stuff like that. I do apologise. Richard says, I drive daft trucks. Preferred Volvo. Don't like the current Scania ones. Yeah, that's probably thinking Mr. Coleman to get back to you on about, and I would say so. Hooked on Cortez and Classics. Simone says, are there petrol tractors to talk about? I went to the Basingstoke Festival of Transport this year. Did a shambolic shuffle there. Did like 8 videos a day or something insane. You know what I'm like. And I just like looked at these tractors and just realised that I didn't know anything about them. That was difficult. Alex Jepson says to Mr. Waters, I mean, this will be the Scottish Volvo's Owners Club. Scottish Volvo Owners Club. I did barely post in there. If you're very active in the community, started to notice people ruining the groups. People ruining Facebook groups. Sad. I think someone says cleaner older Volvos are the new fad at the moment, are they? Persia Dude Son says how. I think we're going to have to stop talking about this forbidden fuel stuff. We're not supposed to talk about this, I'm afraid. Chose 101 says, everyone remembers the Daft Twin Turbo used to do Dakar. I'm not sure I remember that. DBT says, I can't stand football. Russell said the Scania V8 makes a good noise. I don't know, ask Mr. Coleman. Paulie Galtieri says, I remember the Volvo double-decker bus being faster than Lane and Titan. Interesting. Lots of cars says, I learned to drive my father's company 240. Not the most obvious learner car, but the same car saved my father's life in a motorway crash. Yeah. That's interesting. I had an accident in my mother's 240. I was a passenger at the back. It's about 1992, maybe 93. And she was just going along the road. This is just on the way to pick my godmother up, my sister's mother up, when we went on holiday to Cotswolds. But unfortunately, she got distracted by seeing one of her pupils walking along the road, and she went straight into the back of a Cavalier with a tow bar, and it went straight through the radiator of the 240, and bonnet bent, blew the grill out. Bumper was ruined. The thing still drove, but it was leaking coolant everywhere, obviously. Got home with it. Bonnet flew up. I was on our way home. She did drive really slowly. It was fixed in about a week, but we had to go on holiday in a 440 which was a lot less spacious than a 240 estate, which with rear-facing seats. But yeah, it was repaired after that. Yeah, it still drove okay, but steam and things. It's a little bit frightening. For some reason, I was in the middle seat with the lap belt, which wasn't very much fun when you actually then crash into something. You kind of get a bit winded with that. Alex Jebson says, I might have met you at the Dundee Museum of Transport if you were there last year. Okay, wait, what is that? Persia Dude and Son, can you just stop making these sort of remarks, because I'm getting kind of tired of it. Can you just stop it? I'm a bit tired of it, I'm afraid. If you don't like the channel, just go away. Rubbish Mechanic says, Scania V8, nasty engine, not done by Scania. It's not really anything I know about. Alex Jebson says to Mr. Waters, Scottish car enthusiast trades TV. I was in Duvet last year. I walked in the C70. Was the storage about event. Wouldn't mind going back about the C70 this time. When is it you're gonna have that car fixed? By the way, did you say it was a while? DBT says a blue Volvo 760 estate with beige leather interior is one of my dream cars, along with an 850 T5R. Mr. Coleman and I were having a talk about 760 estates, blue 760 estates earlier on today. Actually, we've already sort of discussed that actually a bit earlier on in the live stream. Yeah, it's a real shame about what happened to Mr. Coleman's one. Twisty Vegetables says Victoria Picasso I'm building out of a blue tack will have a bendy bonnet. Oh yeah. Unfortunately, the one I drove didn't have a bendy bonnet, but I can't talk about it, can I? Right. Lots of this car says to DBT, I need a road test for 50R. I didn't see the figures much better than the T5. Do you mean you need a road test, Simon, or you read a road test? Yes, you do. Okay, good. Paulie says, have you been approached by the company involved with the Fiat 300e to subscribe for 6,000 a year? Onto Ian Seabrook, a lot of hate the video. Yeah, he did, and he made a video about it, basically just kind of saying, you know, if you don't want to watch a video, don't watch it. It's simple as that. That's what I say. We've all got, you know, it's very difficult to actually make a living just by running a YouTube channel. I certainly don't. Um, a lot of us have kind of bits we sort of do other than running YouTube channels, and Ian Seabrook's very exceptional in that he doesn't. So I think he was just trying to kind of I think he was just trying to kind of he was just trying to uh, maybe get a bit of money. You need money to run a channel, and you can't rely upon the revenue alone to do that very often. Certainly at my level, I can't. He just wanted, I think, to maybe sort of do a bit of something different. I mean, there's loads of sort of reasons that he might have done it. I don't know. I mean, ask him. I don't know. Alligator Software says, what direction is the older car community going? I don't know. I don't really know. It's a massive question. It's a good question, but it's a really big one. I'm not sure I know. I think with the really old stuff, like pre-60s, it's getting a bit difficult for certain people because it's not actually that valuable. The stuff like Austin Sevens or pre-war Hillman and things like that, and Vauxhalls, they're not very valuable a lot of the time because a lot of people don't want to drive them or own them. And I understand that. It's not really my sort of thing. Some people like them. I'm not really into that. The sort of post sort of mid '60s stuff. I think a lot of them are a bit more usable. But I don't know. Maybe some of you can tell me what you think about that. Simone from Electronic Cartoons and Classics says, "Are you going to the NEC in March or too soon?" Probably, yeah. I'll probably go to the NEC in March again. A lot of its cast is almost all the channels I subscribe to have the EV 500e. Yeah, I've done one of those on my channel. I did it in 2021. I wasn't massively fussed about it one way or the other. Did it with Mr. Bill, who is from Fuel Power, who's got a Panda 100 horsepower, and his lady friend has a 2009 Fiat 500 Lounge, and so he was really keen to drive it. I drove it, but it's not really my thing. I'd much rather have an MG5 or something like that. Some people like them. Some people don't. I don't know. Mr. Coleman says he'll be at the NEC in March. It's very good. Mr. Coleman is always welcome at the NEC. Mr. Waters, Sky Enthusiast and Trains TV says, I think people forget that Ian Seabrook's channel started with Nissan Leaf as a first review. It did. Yeah, he did say that. It's absolutely true. Adam Tom says, talking electric cars, the Aura Funky Cat looks interesting. It kind of does. I'm not sure it's really me, but yeah, I've heard lots of things about that. Mr. Waters wants to come to the NEC in March. It's good. Simone will be on the Mark III Cortina stand. That's amazing, Simone. Hooked on Cortinas and Classics. Julian Knight says, hello everyone. I'm sorry a bit late. Germany are playing. That's very good, sir. Mr. Coleman says, we'll be there in the Jeep with the club. I'm going to skip Alex Jepson's comment because I can't keep a sort of thread of what's going on here. DBD team makes a very, very good point. I have done a video actually in response to what Ian Seabrook said the other day. I think that's maybe the best video that Ian Seabrook's ever made. I think you might find that very strange for me to say because he's made tons of videos over, I think it's 10 years or more. But I think what he said about it and the way that he explains things in that to do with mental health, how negative comments affect people's mental health so much more than you'd imagine, and how being remote and not seeing people in person and not talking to them, but just somebody just leaving it and thinking it's acceptable to just complain about things, and the negative comments do affect you. They affected me a lot, and I have had to deal with an awful lot of them. I had to deal with one the other day, and fortunately it was such an old video that what the chap wrote was so silly that I didn't I just sort of laughed really. But some of them they cut very deep, and it's very difficult when you have to deal with that because you're just trying to essentially on a channel try to sort of express what you do what you're interested in. Sometimes you do a very poor job of it, and sometimes you do a very good job of it. and anything in between. And people saying things like, you know, oh, your presentation is awful, and you need a makeover, and you know, you keep stuttering in what you're saying. It doesn't really help very much, for example. Um, and I think what DBT says here is, I'm not a fan of electric cars. Instead of leaving spiteful comments, I skip the video and to the next one, and people need to do the same. I think it's an extremely good sort of way of approaching it. If you don't like a video on a channel, or don't like a channel in general, just go and watch something else. That's the best thing to do, really. But the video that Ian Seabrook made, just it speaks for itself, really. That's a good one to watch. Twisty Vegetable, no, DBT says Twisty Vegetables. How is said blue type Picasso going to stand the weather? That's interesting. Russell Hunter said very kindly, he says, I appreciate what I do. That's very kind, sir. I don't always do kind of you know, the best job, but I do try. I do try. Lots of 36 Cars says, I just found Autocar's C70 test. It was a T5, 148 miles an hour top speed, 0 to 60 in 6.6 seconds. That's probably a manual one, I think. And 29.4 miles per gallon touring. So I've exceeded the Autocar economy figures. That's interesting. Anvil Tech says, I had a Volvo 940 CDE State. That sounds really nice. I like the sound of that. Mr. Harwood, we were talking about this actually earlier on today, Mr. Harwood and I. I haven't done many videos of being lack of motivation, feeling down. I might do one of the start of next month. I'll see. Sometimes it's very difficult, particularly when you receive these comments of people who just kind of messing around and stuff. It can be very difficult to do that. And keeping going can be hard. Like, you know, if your video doesn't do very well, if you get nasty comments on it, and you know, particularly if you aren't monetized at all, or you know, you're at a very low level and you might get £35 a month, which is what I got on my first time I was monetized. It's very hard to keep going, because that's not going to pay the bills, is it really? That won't pay the bills. You need to keep sort of going in what else you're doing, and also keep going with the channel, and that can be really hard. Twisty Vegetable says, I might stretch it apart and sleep in it. If it doesn't drive, I don't stand it. That's very funny. Then Simon says, fortunately, the only criticism I've had is about better microphones and getting a tripod. Yeah, the sound's a very difficult thing to get right. It's very, very hard to get the sound right. It's very hard. It'd be very hard. Mr. Howard left me a smiley face, and he's saying hello to Simone. That's very nice. Pulling out truth, I haven't seen James from Nitro Sylvia lately. Hope he's okay. I don't know. I haven't seen him either. I don't know what's happened to him. It's very hard to know sometimes when people don't upload. There could be any reason for that, to be honest. Russell says, most of the moderator. Possibly, it's difficult because often sometimes you don't get any comments, and then you get tons in a row, and some of them are, you know, not very nice sometimes. Most of them are fine. A lot of people do leave very nice comments, actually, and that's part of the reason why we can keep going, is people are very supportive, even if the videos are terrible, and sometimes some of mine are terrible. That's why I titled mine Very Vague Vlogs, No Budget Reviews, and Slightly Shambolic Shuffles, because some of the videos are terrible, but people like them anyway. And the reason I keep going with the same format of Slightly Shambolic Shuffles is because people watch them. I don't know why, particularly the ones people want to watch, but they are. And I had my most successful day on the channel ever on the 30th of November, which was during the NEC peak coverage. And so, why do you have so many parts? It's like, well, people said to want to watch them. That's, you know, when we will make videos people want to watch. If they do, if we can, that's what we'll do. Mr. Water's Car Enthusiast and Trains TV says, this is very good. I don't like something, I won't watch it. No need for nasty comments. Yeah, absolutely. Steph might have a classic. I went to pre-war car today. Not something I enjoy. I'm not really into the pre-war stuff. I'm not really into that stuff. I don't know if it's a particularly car I don't really know much about. I might do. But there's no need to say anything really if you don't. If you haven't got anything nice, I don't say anything at all. If Ian Seabrook says something like, if the video's got really, really bad sound, in it, then maybe just nicely let him know. Um, I've had so many stupid arguments with people about, you know, them just saying that everything in the video is wrong, a lot of information is lacking, and they're not saying anything nice at all. For some reason, the Toyota IQ video seems to get the most of that sort of thing. And I spent ages researching that video. I spent ages researching it. Um, I also asked the owner, Justin, who used to be a Toyota sales executive for years, I think even a manager, about the spec of the car. He used to sell them at the time that they were new. I think if I ask someone like that about them, I don't know what else I can do. What else can I do? Apart from, I did a lot of research on it and things. And then people just kind of tell me how wrong I am and all this sort of thing. And, you know, it's all boring and stuff. And I'm sort of getting to the stage now with things like that where I don't even bother replying, because the people tend to be in this sort of headspace where whatever you say is wrong unless you completely agree with them, and you're just wrong. So I might just remove the comment in future if somebody does that, because it's not worth my time. I have a lot of other things I'm doing, you know, just kind of not just making these silly videos. I do have other things that I'm doing, like everybody else does. And so it's just not worth my time even entering a conversation. It's not going to get me anywhere. So you know, I've started just removing things like that now, 'cause it's just not worth it. I might be wrong, of course I might be. I make a lot of mistakes in videos, but somebody kind of constantly telling you that you're making mistakes, it just wears you down a lot if that happens. Uh, Emo L says, I hope so shocking to hear. Never people make comments like that. Jealousy will get them nowhere. Well, people do. They do it all the time. It just happens. James 101 says, I'm enjoying the content lately. That's very nice, sir. I think there's particular a particular video that I filmed this week that you'll be enjoying even more. Russell says, the oldest car I drove was an 87 Bluebird. I love that 1990 Bluebird I drove on Sensible Secondhand Classics a couple of months ago. It was fantastic. Such a nice car. Such a nice car and in really nice condition. Mr. Hobbart's a very good point. It's hard to produce content in the winter months. It is. It's very hard. The days are really short. A lot of people don't want their cars going out. The cars get covered in mud and things like that. And also, if you go to sort of January and February, YouTube doesn't want to pay you money, so your sort of revenue just does that. So it's kind of like a sort of triple whammy of stuff. So that's why I'm trying to get as much content done now, so I don't have that sort of trying to sort of desperately search for cars to film in January and February. I will still do some, and I have actually organised an event to film quite a lot in one day. But yeah, that can be difficult. Mr. Comments says, don't respond well to bad comments, I just ignore them. Not one to get in an argument with. Facing the wrath of a rubbish mechanic is one of the worst things you can possibly do, I've found out, and Mr. Coleman will agree with me. Simone says, hooked on Cortinas and classics, the oldest car I drove was a Mark III Cortina GXL from 1970. Interesting. But the oldest car I've driven is 61 Rover P4 that Alex's Assets has. Paulie Galtieri says, I always enjoy the style of reviews and conversation in the comment section. Yes, you know, we can have nice, you know, sort of comments about stuff. It can be actually kind of quite helpful. I find out a lot of stuff through what people say in the comment section. I find out loads of stuff. And there was a video that we're going to be doing quite soon. It's on a topic that I've talked about a lot over the last 4 years, but for some reason it's blown up recently. It's a very emotional topic for a lot of people, and despite having made like 11 to 12 videos on it already, Ian Seabrook made one about it this week, and yeah, it's bad. I mean, I'm going to have to do it because people will keep asking me if I don't, but I'm just going to have to sort of hold my nerve about that one, I think. Russell Hunter, have we talked about sort of this here? Oh yes, and Tom's. I like the fact that your channel, if you couldn't attend the show, you see more than you would have done if you were there. Yeah, that was hard work, that 22 Shambolic Shuffles. That was hard work, but I did it. And I do it for that reason. That someone, for some reason, can't go to the show or something, that I get everything filmed. Everything that, with one or two exceptions, of course. Twisty Vegetable says, "Do you like drift cars?" I don't think I've ever driven a drift car. I'm building a Citroen C1 drift car out of solidified chewing gum. Um, does that improve the build quality over the standard C1 building it out of solidified chewing gum? Chase 101 says, "We used to go to the Christmas off-road days in Borden. They were always heavily attended by older vehicles. Borden's a great place for sort of military stuff, isn't it? Around there." Chris Robinson says, "Good evening. Beige leather interior." Yes, we do have a beige leather interior in the house. Paulie Galtieri says, "We don't talk about new professionals of Shane Ritchie on this channel." No, we don't. We don't like new professionals. It didn't go well for them. Yes, there's a certain phrase to do with reliance emitter that is also banned. We don't use that phrase on the channel. Mr. Harwood says, "I've been doing a few illustrations of some cars that I may like. A Renault Aventima UO45 and Mazda 121. Is that the 90s Mazda 121, sir? The one that has looked like a curly roof, like an A35 Austin?" Russell says, Jim Royal, sir. Who's that? Lots of 26 Cars says, "Have you attended the Olympia Classic show?" Um, Funnily enough, sir, I'm just about to book my ticket for the London Classic Car Show at Olympia. The London Classic Car Show in 2019 at the Excel Centre was the very first Shambolic Shuffle. It's the very first one I ever did. I hadn't got a clue what I was doing, and it was just one part, and I didn't even know how to edit. It was all done on my phone in one take using the pause button, and that's it. That's all it was. Mr. Coleman says, "In do Olympia car show." Well, sir, I shall be there. I shall go into the car show in February at Olympia, and I shall do it. Richard Howlett says, "Ignore twisty vegetables." DBT says he likes building French cars with unusual materials. He certainly does. Sort of Bluetac and things. Mr. Howard says the 80s Mazda 121. Same as before perceiving a Kia Pride. Yes, I know the one you mean. Richard Howlett says, "Sorry, sir." That's all right, sir. Right, I think that's quite enough. We've gone on for much longer than I've gone on to a live stream for a really, really long time. This is one of the longest ones I've ever done. Thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. I haven't even actually dropped my beer yet. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment below. It all very much helps out. Thank you for everyone who's been here. Thank you for everybody who watched tons of Shambolic Shuffles. I'm very pleased you would do that. It always kind of humbles me that somebody would watch me just mumbling and trying not to fall over and just going around shows trying to dodge people. You want to watch that stuff. I was very humbled about that, and seeing the best ever day on the channel earlier this month was a very kind of emotional point for me. There's one last thing. Paulie Artus says, "Will I be attending the Volvo's Owners Club meetings next year?" That's certainly a good idea, sir. I think I might try. Thank you ever so much indeed, everybody, once again.